advice for budding writers who are perhaps trying to find their authentic voice as a writer, or who are trying to get their stuff out there?
I mentor some people and I teach a little bit, and when I see a writer bring me something that they're rather certain is going to be like meet success in the marketplace, and you can tell when you're reading it. I often say, do you really love this genre? Like, whatever it is, are vampire movies or romantic comedies, is that really your thing? And if they say yes, then I'm like, great, so dig in, go there, personalize it. But for the most part, they say, no, I had an agent or someone tell me this is sellable, this is marketable. And I usually just encourage them. I'm like, there's going to be someone out there who loves romantic comedy, who loves vampire movies, who wants to do comic book films, and they're going to kick your ass because they're going to work so incredibly hard until they get that one yes, because you hear a lot of no's. They're going to beat you, and it's going to be better. They're going to put themselves into it. So you should like throw that away. Don't listen to the agents and managers. Write what it is you know and love. So dig into who you are, dig into how you're different, and start embracing those differences. I mean, it's those unique qualities and who you are and what you're attracted to that give you that voice, that unique voice. And that unique voice, I mean, that supersedes all of the rules of what's marketable and sellable. I mean, no agent came to me and say, hey, start making queer movies about like, folks from history, queer folks from history. That's really marketable. You're going to make a lot of money and have a lot of success and get a lot of awards. No one said that. You do it, and then you sort of have carved out your own little niche that you love, and you end up in a pigeonhole that you like. I'm in a pigeonhole. I do a lot of based on a true story stuff about people of diversity, not just gay people, people of diversity. That's my pigeonhole. I love it.
That's your passion, right?
Well, I mean, it's a good pigeonhole. People say, oh, is it bad that you've sort of been put into this? I'm like, I don't know. It's cozy in here. It's really creative and it's a nice adventure. But make sure you're doing that, and then you end up in a pigeonhole you like. Just chill, a little pillow, make a little nest.
Yeah. Well, I was researching When We Rise, and you've definitely created that diversity aspect in the characters.
I have to say we did. I mean, When We Rise was definitely a big we effort. And so when you look at that project, yeah, I'm bringing my experience and what I can, but it was also important to bring on, our writer's room was gay and straight and black and brown and white.
So you have everyone's
men and
stories.
women.
Yeah.
Well, just so that it's not to be politically correct or even cool. It's because you want, as a creative person, as an artist, you want someone bringing that authentic experience to screen. I can do my very best to write the, black lesbian experience. I can do all the research. I can ask all the questions. I can try really hard. But boy, I'd be smart if I went and brought
someone who actually
a black lesbian onto the staff to help write that. It's going to be better. I'm going to learn more. It'll be more authentic. I think audiences can feel when you're being authentic or when it's you're making it up a little bit. And so so it's When We Rise was for me this experiment of saying, hey, can we bring on all of these voices and do a real we project about the LGBT movement? And and I think it succeeded in many ways. And that had to carry through not just in the writing, but with the directors that we hired and then the cast that we hired. It was trying to see if we brought the real people in who they still had to act and they still had to write and they still had to play other characters, but they're bringing their own experience.
Yeah, see what you could actually really create. Yeah.
Yeah.
So being someone who is a major influence in the LGBT community, you have developed such a strong platform and quite a voice. Do you still struggle to get your voice heard?
I haven't really thought about it. I haven't thought about it. I guess if you're struggling to get your voice heard, you might want to think about what you have to say more than the platform. I mean, there's times where I'm listening instead of talking. There's where I'm, trying to see how things are changing. I mean, things have changed so much since Milk, so much, and so sometimes you need to just be quiet and listen for a while. And I did that for some time, and And then if you are in that still place and paying attention, it becomes clear what the new front in the struggle for equality is. And sometimes, and what your role might be in that. Like, is my role to put my face and my voice forward, or is my role, would I be more helpful right now supporting other people, lifting up other voices? So, if the object is to make the world a more livable place for more people, more equal, more just, if that's the aim, then then it's not about you.
Yeah.
And who cares if you have a platform or not, and you might actually be getting in the way of progress by continually trying to put your face forward.
Sure.
That's where I sort of say, I work on some projects that I just produce, and then you're hiring other people to come in because it might be their voice that's needed at that moment. So no, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't really think about it.
Yeah.
And I think if you start to think about it, then it becomes more of an ego exercise than an equality exercise.
More of a selfish.
Yeah, it could.
Yeah.
And we see that happens. We've seen that happen.
Yeah, totally.
I know. I think people probably have thought I've seen people tell me to shut up before.
Really?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what Twitter's for.
Yeah, totally.
And every now and then they're right. Every now and then I go, I probably should just I'm gonna step back for a bit.
Maybe it puts you in check every now and again. Who knows?
It's fine.
Who knows? Did you ever think in your wildest dreams that you could win an Oscar?
I didn't really think about it, and part of that's where I come from. I mean, I had gone to film school at UCLA, and I had at one point a professor who said, I think it was probably the day after the Oscars or shortly thereafter, said something disparaging about the people who had won them and the kinds of films that had been nominated, and basically made it seem like if you got one of those, you're doing something wrong. And I mean, I didn't have a strong opinion about that, but it definitely stuck in my mind. I, at the time, I was doing experimental films. I was a student of Fellini and Truffaut, Cassavetes. I mean, these were guys, who weren't winning the proper Oscar, at least. They were winning lifetime achievement things. And so it just wasn't on my mind. It was never a goal. But, I mean, when it starts happening, it's
like, what?
Yeah, it's a very exciting thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very exciting. And particularly exciting when you're, like so many of these projects that end up at the Oscars, because I don't agree with that professor that said that. But, so many of these films are passion projects, are meaningful to the filmmakers, are striving to be meaningful to the world. And so when you see the Academy being able to help lift up these films that otherwise might never be seen, and some of the themes in them, well, that's heartening.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a huge stage.
Hope,
Let's just make sure we're using the stage for good.
Yeah, exactly.
And lifting up films that need to be lifted up and voices that need to be lifted up. I'm heartened to see that the Academy is lifting up increasingly more diverse voices. We're getting there.
Getting there.
Yeah.
Getting there. Everything you've written seems to be very factual, based on truth.
Yeah.
The characters that you have written about are real people, the stories are real stories. So what is it about the Harvey Milks and the J. Edgars of the world that you want to develop a story around them? I mean, other than the obvious.
Well, I hadn't, it's not what I wanted to do, and it's not where I started. I mean, my early scripts are fiction. My first successes in film and TV are on Big Love, that's all fiction. I mean, I was writing fiction. It was just, I had done one of my early breaks was a TV show a TV movie called Pedro, which I actually wrote well before Big Love and Milk, even though it came out much later. And so that was my first foray into based on a true story stuff. And I did love it. I loved being able to go and meet all the real people, immerse myself in the families, the culture, the history of who these people are. And then it's the most challenging puzzle to crack. Fiction's not easy, but if you really need something to happen, you can just write it, and it's happened. Based on a true story narrative, I mean, you have to figure out how much you're willing to bend the truth to fit into a 90-minute to 2-hour film before you feel like that truth is snapped. There's all this bargaining that has to go on in your mind, because obviously no one lives their life in 2 hours. It's all fictionalized, but hopefully it is very truthful, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I just loved that challenge. I loved that challenge on Pedro. I was a little baby writer, and it was really tough to figure out how to tell this young man's story in the amount of time I had and the amount of pages I had, which it wasn't long, and still be truthful without making it as long as the kid's life was.
Yeah.
So that challenge is addictive, and I did it again with Milk, and I did it again with J. Edgar and When We Rise, and a bunch of projects that have yet to see the screen, and it's my pigeonhole now. I mean, then you win a bunch of awards for these kinds of projects, and people see you as the based on a true story guy, and even though I'm sitting here, I'm staring off camera right now at a board that has an outline for a fictional film that I'm writing. I know when the call comes in that says, hey, are you interested in so-and-so? I'd be like, oh man, yes. And I also am keenly aware that that opens up time and a budget to go and meet any of the living folks or the experts who knew these people. And that's really addictive. Like, I just want to get, it's like getting to meet some of your heroes, or with J. Edgar, villains, loved ones, and to walk through their homes and get to know their real lives. Yeah, it's really addictive. I really get into it. And then it's absolute torture on the other side. Yeah. Trying to figure it out, crack it, and knowing that you're going to have to throw away like 99% of everything you've learned, because it just won't fit.
What was it like working with Clint Eastwood as a director?
He's just a cool guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's Clint Eastwood. Yeah. He was, by the time J. Edgar was shooting, I had begun to check out of filmmaking a little bit. I was on my road to the Supreme Court with a handful of people in a marriage equality case. And so that was taking most of my time. So I wasn't able to be, I was on set a lot, because Clint invited me to the set, which was really great, to try and keep it as accurate as possible. But I wasn't able to be there in the same way I'd been on Milk, which was too bad, because I had made a decision to step away from filmmaking which ended up being about half a decade that I was away, just to focus on fulfilling a promise I had made on that Oscar stage, to get marriage equality to all 50 states. So that was a lot. And it intersected really, these stories come together. It intersected really in an interesting way, because as we were approaching the Supreme Court, I think we had finished J. Edgar. I think it had come out, I don't remember the timing, or it was about to. And we needed to get these amicus briefs signed, which is just saying, like, who supports this idea of marriage equality in the country? And the real challenge is always to get people who are unexpected, right? People who, are like a bridge to a different group of people, and Clint is famously conservative and a Republican, and those are the people who everyone thought were against marriage equality.
Yeah, and suddenly,
Well, and I was able to call Clint up and just say, would you sign on to our amicus brief in favor of marriage equality, and would you give us a quote? Can you help us out? And he just, without a breath, without a thought, was like, absolutely. And I can't, you got to get the exact quote, but he uses a bad word, you can bleep it out if you want, but he says, I don't give a fuck who you marry. Like, it was something like that, and it was just so great, it just cut through all the BS, and it got a lot of coverage. And all of a sudden, a lot of tough guys, conservative guys, go, okay, well, Clint doesn't care who you marry, it doesn't bother him, why does it bother me? Like, why do I care who this other person marries?
And so people thinking,
Well, so it just, a lot of good came from J. Edgar, and a lot of great relationships, and it was cool to be on a big, studio film. But one of the greatest things that came from it was that quote from Clint, who came on board and hopefully changed some minds on our way to the Supreme Court. Do I agree with them politically about everything? Absolutely not. Have I learned that it's important to maintain relationships and friendships and build bridges between people who disagree politically? Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, I think we're living in a time right now where we've made politics the highest plane in our lives. Like, that is the standard by which we make our friends, that we book our dinners, the conversations we allow ourselves to have. And and there are some serious disagreements to be had, and some tough conversations that need to be had, and some worthy fights. But I do believe there is a higher plane than politics. And I think we got to stop fooling ourselves and letting news programs and politicians make us feel like politics is the highest plane that there is for a human being. Yeah, that is bull. That is not true. There is something higher.
Yeah, it's a much bigger picture.
Well, there's family and friendships. Community. There are things that should supersede politics, and that we should do the hard work and survive the uncomfortable moments to maintain our friendships and families, despite political divides. And I think if we can't remember that, that we're in real trouble, and that we'll continue to build these walls, both figuratively and literally. And that's real dangerous for our people on this planet.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk a little bit about family, but before I do that, there's one question that I do want to ask you in terms of your writing. So how much room should a writer leave for an actor or a director to interpret a script?
Yeah, absolutely none. No, I'm kidding. A screenplay is going to leave room anyway, just how it's written. So it's a really good question, and people ask it all the time. And there's books that have strong opinions, and there's producers who have strong opinions that they say, don't direct your director and your action lines and whatnot. And I always do. And they can take them or leave the suggestions. The camera pushes in here, or we crane up, or a high angle, or whatever it is. I'm always directing the camera in my screenplays, and that breaks rules for some people. But I got to say, the directors that I've worked with have all appreciated it. It doesn't mean they've taken every suggestion, but many times they do, and are like, yeah, that's cool. Like, when you said that, I understand what you meant. I understand what you needed out of the moment. I understand the gravitas of the moment, or the intimacy of the moment, when you described it that way. So I don't know. Film is, it's only like a century old. It's a really new language. The rules are really new. I encourage people to continue to break the rules, because we're discovering the rules.
Yeah, it's a collaborative process.
So actors and directors they're going to bring their own work to it regardless. I mean, you can't shut them out. I mean, I guess if you're an animator, well, even then you have to do voices, but it's going to happen, and that's lovely, and it's a collaborative art. I come from theater. The best part of theater to me was the workshop experience. I wish we had more of that in film and TV. But do your best on your own before you share it. Make sure it's a good quality. Make sure you understand what each moment needs to do. Make sure your characters are well built. And then, when you get to set with a director and actors, be ready for that workshop experience. Make it grow, make it better. On every movie and TV show I've done, there are conversations with actors that have made it better. There are also times when you need to stand your ground. I come from TV, so I come from a world where the writer is like king, and the actors are always coming to you to figure out, like, what did you mean by that? What did you need from that? But also understand, particularly I've been so spoiled to work with such great actors. I mean, these are very smart people, and they have good ideas. They also bring a lot of objectivity that you might not have anymore. It's wonderful to hear Leonardo DiCaprio or Sean Penn come to you and say, why is this here? What is the purpose of this? Yeah. And then I explain it to them, and they're able to say, I wasn't getting that, and maybe I'm not alone. Maybe other people won't get it either. Maybe I can do it in performance, but maybe it needs a little something else. And those some of that can become very fun. I mean, on Milk, it was great. Some of those conversations meant that Sean and Gus and I went away on the weekend and watched some Milk videos, and we pulled a few little things, just little things that we included that clarified some of the challenges for Harvey Milk. And that just came from listening and collaborating. And then other times with other actors, Some actors, and these aren't usually or ever the big name actors, but they're really hungry to get more screen time or make their character, heroic.
Yeah.
And that's where you just have to say, I think you're worried more about you than your character, and you have to push back.
Yeah. Talk to me about you and Tom, since we
Yeah.
haven't mentioned him yet. You are now married, and you've got a beautiful little boy that you've now added to your team. You know, the 3 months.
Who's being very quiet right now.
Yeah,
miraculous.
super quiet.
He loves this show. He's not interrupting at all.
You're both incredibly successful in your own right. So how do you sort of remain balanced in everything that you're both doing? You've now got Robbie. You're an activist. You know, you've got a podcast about surrogacy. There is so much that you're doing. So how do you just remain balanced as a couple, as a team, as a family?
Do I seem balanced?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out.
Putting on a great show. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're doing what we love.
Yeah.
But it's I don't think it's always balanced. You're always struggling for balance, aren't we? Like, if somebody came to me right now and said, I'm really balanced. Like
I'm really balanced.
I definitely have my, love life and family life balance with my work life, like, my friends. I got a really good balance. I'd probably look them in the eye and say, I wonder what tomorrow will be.
Yeah.
I wonder how balanced tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, isn't balance balance is a thing that you're always struggling to find, isn't it? It's like you're in the gym and they make you stand on one of those balls and you're always having to do this. I think it works your abs. Well, that's life. It's like, that's life. So you're never balanced, but you always kind of know which way you probably need to lean more. Like, I'm a workaholic, but let me tell you, Robbie doesn't give a damn about my work. Like, he starts crying for something, you got to act. You're a parent, and so he helps me find balance. And then, but it's like any relationship. Then you have to make sure you're finding the time to just be a couple.
What is your hope for little Robbie as he grows up in today's world? Sorry, these questions are a little intense. But
my hope for Robbie, my hope for Robbie right now, that he figures out first gear. Right now he's crawling, but only in reverse. So
which I think is very talented.
I know. So he crawls in reverse and he spins on his tummy and then he goes in reverse again. So I'm hoping he figures out first gear. I'm not going to put too many expectations on him. You want him to be happy, but even that, there'll be days where he's not happy. So what are you going to do? I don't know. We just do our best.
Just figure it out as you go.
Do our very best.
Yeah.
But I don't have any expectations beyond finding first gear right now. That's the big one.
Yeah. Do you think being a father is now going to influence and change the way that you write at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
New outlook on life or on just experiences or?
Yeah, I mean, it's of the countless profound things that happen when you become a parent, that every parent will relate to probably what I'm saying. To me, the most profound, even though you knew it would happen intellectually, but in your soul, in your gut, you understand your connection to the past and the future. You understand that you're a part of this continuum in a way that before he existed, I claimed I understood, but I didn't. And so, I start to understand the future differently. I start to understand the present really differently. Like, what is our responsibility to the present? What is our responsibility to the future? Heeding yesterday's lessons, the connection from my grandmother to my mother to me to my son. You just start to, and that informs relationships. That informs responsibility, and that's got to change the way I write.
What's next?
What's next?
What's next?
Lunch.
What's it, lunch?
I don't know, another coffee.
Yes.
I don't know what's next. I mean, there's all these projects. There's always all these projects. I'm back in film. I was gone for a long time. I dipped my toe in with When We Rise, but it was really dipping a toe in. But now I'm back. So there's all these, watch out. I hope there's more ahead that breaks through in some way. We'll see. But there's there's 2 TV shows that have promise that ought to get made in the next year that I've been working on writing. There's a feature film, 2 of them. One that I'd like to direct, and another one that is one of those cases of this is better suited to someone else's voice, and so I want to lift up some voices. I mean, that's a big part of what I'd like to do in the future, is to help other people bring their voices to the world, other diverse voices that need to be heard. I know how meaningful it was to have my great hero's story told. There are a lot more. Yeah. So some of that is next. I don't know. More kids next.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more inspirational videos just like this, then don't forget to subscribe, which you can do right over here. Also, give us a thumbs up and let us know in the comment section who you would like us to break the ice with next.